say to people that say you turned your back on the culture or
exactly
black
100%. I have turned my back on the idea of victimization mentality. We are locked up. We went from 1 and 4. We went from 1 and 4 to 1 and 3, but we always pointing at the white people, but yet we want to spend all of our money on foreigns. We want to spend all our money on luxury as opposed to going and buying some land. America is for sale, and there's a lot of barren land. Disney bought a lot of it in Florida, but the culture has you focused so much on fucking somebody bitch and pulling up in a foreign and rapping about things that could get you locked up and then saying you about prison reform. Like, it's, bro, we brainwashed out here, bro. Come on, man, this is a free man talking.
What is the reason? The reason is that here in the United States, the Zionists and their co-religionists have complete control of our government.
While Senator Joe Biden has only just been chosen as the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Shalom TV met the senator and discussed his views on issues important to the Jewish nation.
Following months of speculation, Democratic presidential nominee Barack Obama has selected Delaware Senator Joe Biden as his running mate. As the number 2 man on the traditionally Jewish-supported Democratic ticket, many Jews are questioning what the Delaware senator's views on issues important to American Jews are.
There is this inextricable tie between culture, religion, ethnicity that most people don't fully understand. That is unique and how can I say it? So strong with Jews worldwide. There is a, I mean, you know, I used to say early on when I was a kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
Were I a Jew, I would be a Zionist. And my father pointed out to me, I did not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist. For I am. Israel is essential to the security of Jews worldwide.
So, Simone Sanders, among those challenging the Democratic Party's traditional views on Israel, supporting Israel wholeheartedly, are Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Is this a generational thing? What do you think is going on here?
I do think it's a generational thing. And I think in general, there has been a lack of nuance in the conversation when you talk about Israel and Palestine, to the point where you cannot be critical of the government of Israel's actions without someone calling you anti-Semitic, which some would argue is crazy, because we can be critical of the United States of America and understanding we're criticizing the United States of America, not the people. And so I think that there's a generation of young people who believe that we should be able to have a nuanced conversation about this. Now, I think that this generation of young people has now infiltrated the United States Congress, and they're understanding that it might be a little bit more complicated than it seems on its face. And I think that's a conversation.
So I think it's hard to have a nuanced conversation about a government that calls for the eradication of the Israeli homeland.
The Hamas government.
Right. So that's what I mean. Like, so how can you have a nuanced? That's their position. They're not like, let's get along.
Well,
like, hold on, Simone, hold on.
No, I just want to be
clear.
Stop. You're jumping, and this is what I'm talking about.
Jumping.
I am saying there are people that are advocating for the rights of the Palestinian people. No, I'm not talking about Hamas. The rights of the Palestinian people. Every Palestinian is not Hamas.
Simone,
and so because there is a lack of nuance in the conversation, because anytime I introduce anything that says we should look at these folks as people, you automatically jump to
Simone, I'm not saying you should look at them as people.
Okay.
Do you denounce terrorism like that? Do you denounce Hamas?
I'm not going to engage with
Simone,
this.
It's a simple question.
Of course, Simone.
That's a question that should not even be asked because it has been answered.
Stop.
No, you stop. Because suggesting, do you denounce terrorism? Do you denounce hate? Do you still support Donald Trump? The audacity.
There's no audacity.
This is what I'm talking about.
Well,
Let me just say this.
Okay.
This is an issue
This is, by the
that
way,
Republicans
this is
and
why it's tough to
Democrats
talk
used to
about
be
this issue.
very strong on this issue and their support and united in their support for Israel. If we go back and look at some of the things that are going on and the fact that Israel is on the front lines when it comes to the fight on terrorism, they're the ones that are dealing with it on all ends. We get so much she's doing more than just asking questions. Just sitting there saying we should defund Israel. We get so much out of that
technology. Congresswoman Tlaib?
Yes,
okay.
saying that, we should remove our funding. Wait a minute. You have to understand what we get out of that. We actually get quite a bit out of that. In terms of military technology, in terms of medical technology, they are our allies. They've been our allies out in the Middle East. They're for democracy and freedom out there. And so I think that that's something that we should look at the bigger picture and say.
And again, one government calls for the destruction of the other.
This is clearly representative of the passions on this issue. I will say I've spent a lot of time in the region, and
so have I, Jeff.
And I know you have, and I've spent a lot of time on Democratic platforms. This is not new. This has been evolving over the course of time, and it represents the fact
the fissures you're talking about, the divisions in the Democratic Party.
Divisions, but also the desire to have a more nuanced conversation. Nobody's defending Hamas. Nobody's defending terrorism. The question is, can you be sympathetic to the Palestinian people while also being defenders of Israel and funding Israel? The positions of Rashida Tlaib, they're not representative of all the Democrats who want to have that conversation. They certainly are not. But there is an evolving view and a view that this needs to be a broader conversation that isn't just always defending Israel at all costs. And that's what you're seeing, I think, play out here.
There is tremendous pressure inside the political process to make sure that the voters stay aligned inside either the Democrat or Republican parties. Why? Because both of those parties have been captured by special interests. And those special interests are, quite frankly, the antithesis of the interests of the people. And so therefore, for example, if people in the United States care about education, but unfortunately, there's a banker that gets in between the student and the student's ability to go to school. If they care about health care, there's the insurance industry that gets in between the patient and the doctor who is seeking to provide care. And so we have all of these special interests that have positioned themselves in between the political decision makers and the people themselves. The process now is more responsive to those special interests than it is to the values and the wishes of the American people. When I first went to Congress, I did not go to Congress to pay particular attention to any area outside of the black community that I represented that was in need, and of course U.S. Africa policy, which was abhorrent and unfortunately still is. But what I bumped into at almost every turn were these special interests. And there's no more special interest that has any more influence than the pro-Israel lobby. And so then when I did outreach, for example, to the Muslim community in the United States, I bumped into the pro-Israel lobby, which of course does not want to have to contend with a politicized Muslim community, which is as large as and is as wealthy as the pro-Israel lobby is in the United States. So yes, I first-handedly and also frontally was assaulted by the presence of the pro-Israel lobby to such an extent.
Physically assaulted?
Well, politically assaulted. Okay. To such an extent that my father had to ask the question publicly, what does Stone Mountain, Georgia have to do with Israel? What I was doing was servicing the needs of my constituents. And I was not allowed to do that because I did not toe the line on U.S. policy for Israel.
What line is that they wanted? Were you told directly that you had to toe a line, or explain that to me?
Well, every candidate for Congress at that time had a pledge. They were given a pledge to sign. And I was new on the scene. And so the pledge had Jerusalem as the capital city, the military superiority of Israel.
American Congress people have to sign this pledge.
Yes, you sign the pledge. If you don't sign the pledge, you don't get money. So, for example, it was almost like water torture for me. My parents observed this. I would get a call, and the person on the other end of the phone would say, I want to do a fundraiser for you. And then we would get into the planning. I would get really excited because, of course, you have to have money in order to run a campaign. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the planning, they would say, did you sign the pledge? And then I would say, no, I didn't sign the pledge. And then my fundraiser would go kaput. I made it public. This probably nobody had said anything about it. But I made it public, and then, the excuse was, well, those were just overzealous advocates for Israel. So then the tactic changed. And but this is what is done for 535 members of the United States Congress. 100 senators, 435 members of the House of Representatives have to now write a paragraph, which basically says the same thing. So it's not a pledge, but it's a paragraph, and you post it, and, there are these forums you have to go to at the synagogues or whatever. And then, if you don't perform appropriately, then you don't get money to run your campaign. The problem is that it requires an awful lot of money to run a campaign. And whether it's a woman's organization, an environmental organization, people can read about this on the internet if they're interested. If you go to thomas.loc.gov, that is the official United States Congress website. And if you put in the name Gus Savage, because Gus Savage was a black member of Congress who was targeted by the pro-Israel lobby. And he had the foresight to use his position as an incumbent in the House of Representatives to put his experience on the congressional record. For the entire existence of the United States Congress now, people will be able to access his experience. And what he wrote was that it was the Garden Club of New Jersey that gave his opponent $5,000. But it wasn't really the Garden Club of New Jersey. It was the activists who were associated with AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Well, the district that I initially represented in Congress, I represented so many districts because redistricting was a tool that was used to target me, to eliminate me from the Congress. But the district that initially sent me there was a district that was comprised of rural blacks in the black belt of Georgia. These are people who have not had access to equal opportunity at all. The district was challenged in the Supreme Court. And with the assistance of the Anti-Defamation League, the district was dismantled. It generally takes about $250,000 minimum to take a case from filing up to the Supreme Court. And the people who filed the lawsuit to dismantle they challenged my ability to represent the people of that particular district.
Who were these people?
Well, actually, interestingly, there were 5 white citizens, one of whom had been the white male candidate that I defeated in the Democratic primary. And they were aided and abetted by the Anti-Defamation League. And when the case arrived at the Supreme Court, Interestingly, on the same day as an environmental case, the spotted owl case, the Supreme Court decided that the habitat for the spotted owl should be protected, but that the black voters in that district could have no protection. And so the district was dismantled. Well, I have, because of the notoriety about me telling my story, and then, of course, the public positions that I've taken supporting the human rights aspirations, the legitimate rights and the aspirations of the Palestinian people, I have a target on my forehead. And that then means that every means that is available to the pro-Israel lobby will be utilized to make sure that I do not ever occupy a position of authority. Now, fortunately for me, there is a very large peace community that is interested in change. And they would like to have a tested, experienced voice representing them in that very hall of Congress so that they can at least have their voices heard, even if they can't change the policy. But being there is the first step to having the policy changed.
Are you saying that members of Congress are basically prostitutes? That they're basically scared to death of the interest groups, scared to death of the people that buy their campaigns? What are you actually saying about the system?
I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They control both members of the House and the Senate. They have us involved in wars of which we have little or no interest. Our children are coming back in body bags. Our nation is bankrupt over these wars. And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. And if they don't beat you at the poll, they'll put you in prison.
What you said was, quote, talking about Israel and, quote, Jewish people. They're controlling much of our foreign policy. They're influencing much of our domestic policy. What do you mean by that? Because that sounds to me like a bizarre conspiracy theory. Why would you say something like that when it's just, first of all, patently untrue?
Number one, I served in Congress for 17 years. I've seen members question bills and votes on how does Israel feel about this. I must have heard that every time there was a significant vote.
And here's what I said, Chris. I said, I want to apologize to all the hookers in America for having associated them with the United States House of Representatives. Yeah, I think it's a big whorehouse.
Explain to me what you see as, why you target or why you have a grudge against the Israelis.
The grudge is not necessarily a grudge. It's an objective assessment that no one will have the courage to speak about. They're controlling much of our foreign policy. They're influencing much of our domestic policy. Wolfowitz, as Undersecretary of Defense, manipulated President Bush #2 back into Iraq. They pushed definitely to try and get Bush before he left to move into Iran. We're conducting an expansionist policy of Israel, and everybody's afraid to say it. They control much of the media, they control much of the commerce of the country, and they control powerfully both bodies of the Congress. They own the Congress.
Are you an anti-Semite? Are you an anti-Semite? Anti-Semite?
Often when there is dissent expressed in the United States against policies of the Israeli government, people here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it. It's a trick. We always use it.
Finally, I was the number one target in the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee. And let me tell you something. People are scared to death in Washington to say what's wrong with the country. Because if you rile some big people, you're done. They're more concerned with perpetuity than what's good for the country. And the country's going to hell in a handbasket, Chris.
Well, let's talk.
This is a very serious problem.
But Israel, through its lobby, has manifested so much power over the United States Congress that we're embroiled in wars that I don't believe we should be. Our kids are coming back in body bags. And in the long run, this Israeli lobby is going to hurt Israel. So as soon as you mention Israel, someone claims you're an anti-Semite. The truth of the matter is, I'm pro-American, Sean. And I don't like, hear me. I don't like what's happening in America today.
That's fair.
Our kids are coming back in body bags.
Wait a minute, but you're saying
we're bankrupt, completely broke.
Now look, Israel's used us like a whore over there.
And the Arab people over there hate America. It's just a matter of time till our policies started to import these tragedies.
Our policies in the Mideast have been so one-sided and subjective. Without objectivity, we've created so many enemies, the only way they can strike back is we've imported the terrorists from those actions.
Wait a minute.
So if you question it, you're saying you're an anti-Semite.
No, that's not what you did. That's not what you said. You said they're controlling our foreign policy. They're controlling our domestic policy.
Yes, and I believe they are.
Hear me now.
I believe they control the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That's insane.
And they're controlling our foreign policy. I'm saying we should be objective. We have developed serious enemies from a one-sided policy. And yes, I believe Israel, through their lobby, has manifested total power of the Congress of the United States. Power. And my concern is the taxpayers and the citizens of the United States should control their government, not a foreign entity.
To suggest, as you're doing here tonight, that they control our Congress, that, quote, they are influencing and the sole control of influencing of our domestic policy is an absurdity. It sounds like you are a kook.
Sean, I'm not suggesting it. I'm telling it. Yes, I believe they manifest a great power over America. Let me also say, in the last 4 years, there are 2 separate incidents of AIPAC spying on America. We even conducted a search warrant on AIPAC headquarters. Now, I don't like what's going on here. All I'm telling you is, I'm concerned about America. You and I might disagree. I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm not against Israel. And if Israel's attacked, I'm the first one to want to support them. But what I'm saying to you is this power that's being manifest on our Congress is going to backfire and is going to end up in the long run hurting Israel, because the American people are getting about fed up with this government.
One last shot at this. Will you back down from, quote, they are controlling much, meaning the Israelis, they are controlling much of our foreign policy. Will you back off that statement?
No, I don't.
But when I made that statement, you didn't see me on TV no more. Now, let's just think about how powerful they are. Look at all the talk show hosts. Some are very conservative, some are very liberal. They're diametrically opposed on every issue, but they all sing out of the same hymn book on Israel because they control our government. They control our media. They control the finances of this country. And I'm not anti-Semite. I'm not against Israel. I think Israel, in their aggressiveness, is going to end up hurting their country in the long run. But America has gone too far now. We haven't been objective in the Mideast. We've invited and we have in fact imported terrorism to our shores over our policies. But the bottom line is, no one's dealing with the problems, Chris, because if you deal with the problems, the real problems in America, you get targeted. And you know what I'm talking about now.
That's the main thing people are controlled by. Thoughts, their perception of themselves. They're slowed down by their perception of themselves. If you're taught you can't do anything, you won't do anything. I was taught I could do everything.
But I'm nowhere near where my dream is, dog. I got aspirations. I got big dreams, motherfucker.
Or any limit to what you think you can achieve?
No, because I think right now, if I was to quit rapping and I said I want to go to the NBA, I would be in the NBA.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would.
No, you wouldn't. Why would you think you could make it to the NBA?
Because I think I can do anything. Go listen to all my music. It's the codes of self-esteem. It's the codes of who you are. If you're a Kanye West fan, you're not a fan of me, you're a fan of yourself. You will believe in yourself. I'm just the espresso. I'm just a shot in the morning to get you going, to make you believe that you can overcome that situation that you're dealing with all the time.
In the entire history of mankind, there has never been a political elite concerned about the well-being of regular people. And it isn't any different now. Why should it? Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because I can tell you, you cannot comply your way out of a tyranny. It is impossible. Trying to do so, you will only feed a gigantic alligator in the hopes of being eaten last But guess what? Your turn will come, and then you will be the one swallowed up. I also have to ask the people, end your silence. Speak up. For God's sake, stop complying. Start rebelling. They're out to get you if you do not resist.
Let's go. Hey, now you know, now you know.